Oh yeah, we are cooking good now. Look at the flames coming off of that. It's only been a few minutes. This is actually working pretty well. A little smokier than my normal way of doing it, but not exactly smoking up the neighborhood, so I think I'll be okay. As long as I stay upwind. Well, hello scrappers, Mike here. Welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to start a project. This may stretch out over a couple of videos. We'll see how much I can compact it. We're going to process some IC chips and recover the gold in them. And I've got over here a box with about 30 pounds of IC chips in it. And there's going to be a lot of gold in these IC chips. There's probably some silver, probably also some platinum group metals. Though those might not be in enough quantity to recover, but probably some gold and some silver that we can get out of these IC chips. I know there's going to be some gold. So, yeah, 30 pounds of them. Yeah, there's a lot of IC chips there, so there's going to be a lot of gold there. I bought these from another scrapper who's not really set up for processing them to recover the gold from them and doesn't really want to get involved in all it's going to take to get the gold out of these chips. And I think I got a pretty good deal on them. Bought them from him, and I'm pretty happy with what I got here. So what's step one of the process? Well, step one of the process is we got to do some sorting. Yeah, we got to do some sorting. Well, step one is I got to find the ones that went off the back end, but got to do some sorting because we got some ceramic chips mixed in here. That's a ceramic. That's a ceramic. So what I want to do is I want to sort out the ceramics from the rest of the plastic chips. There's also some other stuff in here that's not IC chips. There's some connectors with some gold pins on them, which is nice. I'll sort those and set those aside. And then we'll just, there's some general garbage in here, which I will pull out too. And there's some batteries. And I'll show you the sorting process. Because I do get a little elaborate with my sorting process, we're going to put all the ceramic ones aside and deal with those later. All right? Because, I don't know if you can see it, I'll give you a close-up of this one. I need to peel the labels off of these ceramic EPROMs and look and see which ones have visible gold inside, like this one, which I just picked up. So I'll give you a close-up look at that. There, can you see the gold in there? Yeah, so that's one. Yeah, so that's one I'm going to put in the visible gold pile. And let's see, there's other stuff here, like I said. There's pins with gold legs on them, so I'm going to sort those all out and put them in a pile. And then there's all these plastic IC chips. And they're all going to go in one pile, but I'm also going to sort through them because if you've been watching, if you know me at all, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that one of my hobbies is retro computing and electronics. So I'm going to sort through all these ICs for any that will be useful to me in those hobbies too. I can maximize my value that I get out of these ICs by sorting through them and pulling out ones I could reuse for my other projects. And I have the ability to test these and see if they're any good. And a lot of these are going to be good. They're going to be just fine. I might have to straighten the legs, but yeah, a lot of these are going to be just fine. I'll show you any useful chips I find along the way and tell you why they're useful as I'm sorting. And like I said, maximize the value that way. So let me get set up for sorting. Let me get some bins to put things in and my garbage can over here to put the garbage in, and we'll start sorting. So after I sort all the ceramics out of this, like I said, I got to peel all the labels off and have a look at them. And then I'll sort the ones with visible gold in one pile and ones without visible gold in another pile. So there's a lot of sorting to do here before we can get started with anything else. Okay, so I've started sorting. I'm going to throw all of the ceramic IC chips I find in here and deal with them later. All of the plastic IC chips, after I take a close look at the number on them. being an electronic engineer, I recognize a lot of these things. That's an Intel microcontroller. Now that is the sort of chip that would be used in like a Commodore 64 computer. That is a 6522 AP. I'm going to set that one aside as potentially useful. I found a few potentially useful ICs in here so far. Like there's Z80A CPU. Zilog just said they've discontinued making those. So there aren't any more of these coming down the line. Here's some brand new IC chips still in the anti-static foam. And some other potentially useful ones. Flash RAM, another Z80. What's this one? That's a RAM chip. Oh, so the potentially useful ones for my other hobbies and projects can go in there. Well, it's Mike from the future breaking in here. And you may think all this sorting is pointless and superfluous and I should just process all these chips. But I'll tell you what, in the past, in other videos, I have pointed out that I keep useful chips for my own projects. And believe it or not, during the course of filming this video, before I even had it edited together and released, somebody contacted me wanting to buy some of my chips that I have stockpiled. The good ones for reuse, which I can charge a whole lot more for than their gold value. So this sorting is not pointless. It's actually pretty darn useful. You might want to consider doing it too. Gold stuff with gold-plated legs, and also any ceramic chips with gold-plated legs I find will go in this bin for now, just to sort things out. And then the plastic ICs are going in this bucket. And a lot of stuff that's just garbage is going in the garbage can down here. Now there is some other stuff here. There's some little trimmer potentiometers here. There seem to be a bunch of them in here. They don't look like they were ever soldered into anything. They must have been socketed or just new old stock or something. I'll probably throw these out because I have plenty of these, and I don't really believe there's any precious metals in them. There's some power transistors, or yeah, that's a power transistor. I'll set them aside because they process somewhat differently than the IC chips. And there's some power amplifier modules here. I'll set those aside with the transistors. And it's just a lot of sorting. That's all there is to it. There's just a lot of sorting. You pull some out of the box and you sort it into the different bins. Let's see. That is that's a useful chip right there. That is a 32K flash RAM. I use those in my projects. But those can go. So yeah. So it's just sitting here and sorting through everything. It's just going to take a while, but it'll be worth it in the end when we get the gold. So I'm going to sit here and sort. Now, this would be a useful chip too. This is a Yamaha sound chip that was used in computers back in the 80s and 90s. But the legs are too mangled. A few of them are missing. I can't do anything with this chip, so we're just going to process it for its gold. Yep, another useful chip. Another flash chip of the type I use in my other projects, so we'll throw that in there. Like I said, I can test all these and make sure they are actually good working chips. Some chips, when I don't know what they are, I might set them aside to Google them later. So I'm going to set that one aside. Some more power transistors over here. Little chips here. These are all plastic chips. They can go in the bucket. Another potentially useful chip if the legs aren't too mangled. I think the legs are too mangled. That's a Zilog serial communication controller, but the legs are too mangled on it, so we'll throw it in there. There's nothing I can do with it. There's a lot of garbage mixed in with this stuff. So I just pick up the garbage and throw it in the garbage can down here and just keep on sorting until I have enough to start my next step in the process. Which, if you're wondering what the next step in the process is, it's going to be delegging, taking the legs off of the chips. So we have less junk metal to deal with when we're trying to get the gold out. That is an old chip. I'll bet that has gold, visible gold inside. I think I'm just going to peel the label off of that one and have a look inside and see if it really does have visible gold. Let's do that. Yep, can you see the gold in there? Yep, after a while you kind of get a feel, if you do enough of these, you get a feel for sort of the manufacturer, the package type, and the capacity on these EPROMs that are going to have gold in them. So, yep, that's one that's got gold in it. I'm sure a lot of these other EPROMs have gold in them too, but really, that's for another video where I process them. I already have some videos on processing ceramic IC chips. I'll put a link to one in the upper right. You can check that out if you like. All right, I've been sorting for quite a while. Got a nice little bit in the bucket down here. A lot of ceramics over here. Got some dip switches, which is nice because they have good gold in them. Lots of transistors. There is some crap here, some garbage. Now the guy I bought these from said it was all IC chips, but there's obviously other stuff besides IC chips in here. But the garbage is minimal, and it's pretty much unavoidable, so I'm not too worried about that. All the other stuff in here, most of the other stuff in here, like all these gold pins right here, which I'm getting a fair number of in here. You know, there's gold here, there's value here, so there's not too much to complain about. 6809. That's a nice little microprocessor chip. That was in the TRS-80 color computer. Yeah, I can just straighten the pins on that and keep that one. That's good for my retro computing hobby. So I've about got enough here to move on to delegging. So I'm going to sort a little bit more, and then we'll move on to the next process, which is delegging. All right, I guess that's about enough sorting for one day. This bucket's about half full. Yeah, quite a few pounds of chips in there. So let's move on to delegging these things, just so there's less junk metal to have to deal with when I try to get the gold out of these. Get rid of these legs on the side of all of them. That's going to reduce the amount of metal in here by quite a bit. Okay, delegging takes place in these two buckets. These buckets are full of muriatic acid. And I've been using the same muriatic acid in them for a while. In fact, I changed it out not too long ago because it had gotten saturated with metals and was taking a long time to finish the job. So in the future, I think we'll look at trying to recover copper from that waste liquid that I took out of these buckets. I put fresh muriatic acid in and started it up again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a roughly equal amount of chips in both of these buckets. Roughly equal. You don't want to overload them though. Make sure everything has a chance to get in contact with the acid, okay? Now, off screen, you can't see them. I've got a couple of fish tank bubblers. And they're going to blow air through the muriatic acid solution in here, which is a deep green at the moment. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, deep green. And that will speed up the process of dissolving off the legs, because there's a lot of copper in the legs. There's also steel, and there's tin on the legs. But this is going to eventually dissolve all those metals away and leave nothing but the chips behind. So I'm going to stick this in here. I have to leave the tail end of the thing sticking out so I can grab it. Put the lid on loosely so that the air I'm bubbling in can escape. and then put some rocks on it to make sure that the wind can't blow the lid off, and a lot of rainwater will get in there to dilute the solution. And we'll do the same thing with this one right here. Put the hose in, the bubbler hose, sink it underneath the colander so it bubbles air up through everything. Put the lid on, put some rocks on it, and we'll put it back up under here where it normally lives. All right, and we'll just let those go. Now, over time, the liquid in here, as it dissolves the legs off, gets really saturated with metal compounds. Iron, copper, some tin. I recently changed the liquid in these buckets and put in fresh muriatic acid because it was starting to slow down a lot because the liquid was really saturated with metal compounds. So I've got a bucket full of waste liquid from my last delegging setup. I think in a future video, watch for that, we'll try to recover the copper from that liquid because I think it's super saturated with copper compounds, and I think we can get a lot of copper out of it. So watch for that video. I think it'll be interesting. Okay, so this is going to take a little while, depending on temperature, ambient temperature. We're in Florida where it's hot almost all the time, so this might take a couple weeks at the most. During the cooler months, it might take a month or more to finish. Of course, I got fresh acid in there, so it'll probably be pretty quick. But we'll take a look at some ICs I've already delegged. So, just like on any cooking show, rather than making you wait for the whole process of delegging to happen, here's some that I prepared earlier. These have come out of the delegging process and been rinsed off, and they are ready for the next step in the process, which is going to be incineration. So we will get set up to incinerate some of these chips and run them through the rest of the process to get the gold and silver out of them. Okay, so it's time to incinerate some chips. I want to ash them up so it makes it easier to get at the lovely gold goodness inside them. So how am I going to do this? Well, I've got my foundry furnace over here, and I've got a little cast iron Dutch oven sitting on top of it on some rebar across the throat of it there. And I've got some pieces of fire brick around the top there to sort of direct the heat coming out of the throat onto the sides of the Dutch oven so it doesn't just come out and go up in the air. I want that Dutch oven good and red hot. So I'm going to fill that up with some of my delegged chips, and we'll see if we can ash them up this way. Now, I have never tried this before with chips, but I recently did a whole bunch of tantalum capacitors this way, and it worked great. I'll put a link to the tantalum capacitor video in the upper right if you want to check that out. Got a lot of great silver out of the tantalum capacitors. So we're going to try ashing the chips this way and see how it goes. So let me get it loaded up. Okay, got a bunch of ashed chips here ready to go. Ooh, there's a bunch of, well, not a bunch, a few anyway, of tops from Gold Corner BGAs. I'll throw them in too. Now notice I'm not weighing anything. No, I'm not weighing anything. We're not going to try and calculate a yield. This is just a continuous batch process. I've got probably 100 pounds of chips, and I just need to go through them. You know, they go into the delegging, they come out of the delegging, they get incinerated, they go through the other steps, I recover the gold and the silver, and it's just a continuous batch process. Continuous, because I'm always getting more chips, and I'm always having to process them. So I'll put a few more in. Here's a big flat pack, I'll throw that in. And we'll get this lit, get it good and hot. I got an iron stir bar there. I'll stir it to make sure that all the chips get in contact with the soon-to-be red-hot Dutch oven here, and we'll see how the ashing goes. The wind is blowing perfectly off this way, away from all my neighbors and anybody who might complain. Hopefully it won't make too much smoke, though. I was surprised at how well this worked for the tantalum capacitors. There was hardly any smoke. So we'll see how this goes. So let me get this started up, get this process going. Well, all right, we'll let that heat up and see just how well this works. We'll find out together because, like I said, I've never done it this way. We'll let that warm up for a few minutes and see how it's doing. Oh yeah, we are cooking good now. Look at the flames coming off of that. It's only been a few minutes. This is actually working pretty well. A little smokier than my normal way of doing it, but not exactly smoking up the neighborhood, so I think I'll be okay. As long as I stay upwind. Alright, so we'll just let this continue to go until pretty much all the plastic's burned off. So here's a close-up look. Yeah, we are getting ashed over here. The flames are dying down, the smoke's almost non-existent. The chips are starting to turn white. I need to stir it a little bit. Make sure everything gets exposed to the oxygen so that everything can ash up. But yeah, this is working. This is working. It's fairly quick, and it seems to be working good. I think these will be done in another couple minutes. Okay, these are starting to look pretty well ashed. Wow, I don't know if that's showing up how red hot the bottom of this Dutch oven is. Yeah, it's really red down there. But I think I'm going to let it go for just a couple more minutes until the last of the smoke stops. And then I'll shut it off. And while the pot's good and hot, I'll dump these out and put another load in. And keep the good times rolling here until I got a fair amount of chips ashed up and ready to go on to the next stage. Alright, this first batch is definitely done. You see if I can dump these out without spilling it. Come on. There we go. Oh, that's hot over here. Oh yeah, that is hot. That Dutch oven is red hot. I don't know if that showed up on camera, but it is red hot. Alright, while it's red hot, let's do another load. Oh yeah, look at the smoke immediately. That's how hot it is. Oh, it flames immediately. Alright. This batch is going to go quick, because this thing is already superheated. Oh yeah. Okay, that's about all I want to put in, because I'm going to have to stir it. So, I'll do 3-4 batches, and that'll be enough to move on to the next step. So, these will be done in maybe 10 more minutes. This is going fantastic. I may do it this way from here on out. And really, it's just the first batch that's smoky. The second batch, with the Dutch oven this hot, takes the flame immediately. There's almost no smoke. This is great. I love it. Okay, so, like I said, 3, maybe 4 batches. And when we're done, I'll give you a look at what we got. Well, there we go. 4 really well ashed batches of chips. Still very, very hot. Oh my goodness, the heat coming off of them is crazy. So they're going to have to cool down, but it's late in the day, so I'll just let them cool down till tomorrow. And then we'll move on to the next step in the process. What's the next step, you might be asking yourself? Well, we're going to crush these into a fine powder. So that's the next step. So stay tuned for that. Alrighty, so I've got these IC chips all nicely incinerated. So what's the next step in the process? Well, the next step in the process, I need to crush these into a fine powder and separate the metal they contain, including gold bond wires, from all of the ashed plastic. So how am I going to do that? Well, I just happen to own a ball mill. It's a home-built ball mill. Basically, it's just a cheap Amazon vibratory type tumbler that I filled up with 20-some pounds of various sized ball bearings. And it works great as a ball mill. When it's vibrating, all those balls jump around in there and they crush up anything I put in there pretty darn well. So let's put some IC chips in it and get it going. So I'm going to put about 3 good handfuls of IC chips in here. No escapees. You go too. That wasn't a very good handful. All right, there we go. And then one last good-sized handful. All right, that will do it. Let me get this thing lidded up, and we'll get started. Now, I have found that this needs to run for about 2 hours with incinerated IC chips to convert them into a fine powder and separate all the metal from the plastic remains. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to run this for about 2 hours. Then we'll take a look inside and see what we've got. Yes, it's very loud. I'm going to go do something else for a while. Okay, so my homemade ball mill's been running for about 2 hours with that batch of chips in it. Now I need to get the powder out of it. How am I going to do that, you might be asking? Well, I'm going to vacuum it out. And I'll explain here in a second, once I get the lid off, how this is going to work. Yeah, full of black powder. Perfect. So, you probably can't see much in there. A little bit. Anyway, what I've got over here, this setup I've got my shop vac over here, and I've got it connected to my Dust Deputy Cyclone separator over here. And I'm going to vacuum it out with this wand over here, which is connected to the Dust Deputy. And the dust is going to go in, swirl around, and drop into this canister. And mostly just clean air is going to go into the shop vac. That's the way this works. And it works pretty good for me. And all the dust that I vacuum out of here will wind up in there for later processing. And I can just keep feeding chips through until I get them all processed and all the dust in there, and then move on from there. And that's exactly what I propose to do. So let me get this stuff vacuumed out. Now, it's going to be loud, so you won't be able to hear me narrate. I'm going to turn on the shop vac first and get it going. Then I'm going to turn on the ball mill, because as the balls bounce around in there, the powder tends to climb the walls, and it's much easier to vacuum out that way. I just run the wand around above the bouncing balls against the wall, and pretty soon I've got all of the dust out. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll zoom in on the Dust Deputy at some point, and you can see how the dust is swirling around in there and dropping down into the canister. It's very cool. All right, so let's get started. On with the vacuum. On with the ball mill. And there we go, just like that. That's how that works. So I've got the first load of incinerated chips through there, all pulverized. Let's put 3 more handfuls in and let it run for 2 more hours. And I'm just going to keep this up until all these chips are pulverized. And in the Dust Deputy canister over there, then we can move on to further processing. All right, So we're ready to go for 2 more hours. It's just a matter of wash, rinse, repeat until all the chips are processed. So off we go for 2 more hours. All right, this load of chips has been in here for 2 hours, so we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to vacuum it out, put another load in, and let it go for 2 hours, just like before. All right, and that's all vacuumed out. And just like before, I'm going to put in like 3 more handfuls and start it up and let it go for 2 more hours. I got probably 2 or 3 more loads here, so I think you're getting the idea. I won't make you watch the whole process. We'll just pick up when I've got all of these chips crushed and all of the dust vacuumed out, and it's all in my dust deputy over there. And then we will pick up with the next step in the process. All right? So, see you when these are all done. All righty. All of the chips have been run through the ball mill, and all the dust and debris is down here in this canister. Let's open it up and have a look inside and see what we got. All righty. Let's get a look inside. And I don't know if it's showing up, but there's a whole lot of black dust in there. Yep, whole lot of black dust. And there's going to be lumps in that dust. And we need to filter out the lumps. So that's the next process. And that's where I might start looking like I've been working in the coal mine all day, because that stuff is very black, very dirty, and it's probably going to get all over me. But let me set up for that, and I'll show it to you. All right, so the next step in the process is I need to sieve this stuff and get the lumps out of it. And I got a stack of 3 sieves right here. The top one's a quarter inch holes. This one down here is 1/8 of an inch holes, and this one down here is about 1/12 of an inch holes. So don't really need to classify it into all these different grades. I just happen to have these sieves. And putting the bigger ones on top just keeps the big stuff from tearing holes in the smaller, finer sieves, because I think there's going to be some big stuff in here, going from experience. So I'm going to dump some of this on here and shake it all through. Whatever makes it through the finest sieve down here, that'll have our bond wires in it, our gold bond wires. The other stuff's just going to be debris. There's going to be a lot of metal from the internal legs and framework on the chips that wasn't dissolved by the acid treatment. There's going to be chunks of chip that were not fully incinerated and not fully crushed up in the ball mill. And who knows what else we might find in here. So, got to get rid of all that stuff. It's just in the way. All we want is the stuff that goes through this final 12 to the inch screen, and that will contain our gold, our bond wire. So I will look at everything that comes off of here and make sure none of it is gold plated, okay? I'll look through it all really close and make sure there's no gold plating on any of it before I discard it. Let's get started, because there's a fair amount of material here. This is going to take a little while. Got my dust mask on. Got my gloves on. But this stuff is filthy. About enough for now. Yeah, so I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what I got here. So here's a chunk of unburned IC chip, and there's a lot of pieces of bigger metal up here. I think these are well, some of it's metal and some of it's silicon chip dies. But yeah, some of it, I think some of those chips had internal heat spreaders. There's another chunk of unburned IC chip. So there's the big stuff. Dump that off. Here's the medium-sized stuff. And here, what we've got, by the looks of it, is just a lot of silicon IC chip dies. So I think that's what we got there. And then we've got this finer screen down here. And here we're catching a lot of the metal internal parts of the chips. The parts of the legs and the internal framework. And some more silicon die where they got broken up. There's bits of silicon die debris there. So, like I said, I will look through all this stuff and make sure there's nothing gold-plated on it. But it really doesn't look like there's anything so far. It's just going to be a lot of sifting to get through it all and trying not to get it all over me. Yeah, there's a big chunk of a chip that did not fully incinerate and crush up. So I will take these chunks of chips that didn't incinerate and crush, and I'll put them with the next batch of chips that need incineration. And right here, shining brightly, I don't know if you can see that, is a piece of gold-plated metal from inside a chip. That gets set aside. In fact, I will go through all this stuff and set aside any more of those I find. This one's not gold-plated, but it's awful shiny. It might be silver. So yeah, this stuff will all be gone through and dealt with. Anything that looks gold-plated will be set aside for processing later. Anything that needs to be re-incinerated and re-crushed will be set aside and dealt with. And this stuff here, the finest stuff, I'll probably give it a wash so I can see better what I've got here, whether there's anything gold-plated or silver-plated. And the fines that come off of it when I wash it, I will return to this bucket, which is collecting all of the fine material. So, that's how it works. I think you got the idea. Be back when I'm done and we're ready to move on to the next step. So after much sifting, here we go. I got maybe a fifth of a bucket full, 5-gallon bucket full of fine powder that used to be plastic IC chips. Next step is going to be gravity separation. But we might save that for another video. This video is getting pretty long, and I've got other things to do today. So we'll pick up where we left off with this process of bulk IC chip processing in the next video. If you found this at all interesting, educational, informative, whatever, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and subscribe to see the future videos, including part 2 of bulk IC chip processing. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.